Every writer needs to develop their own unique creative voice. But on top of this, you will also have to have a good handle on the voice of your characters. No two people on this planet communicate in exactly the same way, and this should also apply to the characters in your story. But this can become a little bit confusing. How do we distinguish between a character's voice and ours? I'm going to answer this question in two ways because the answer depends on the point of view of the story. That is, whether you're writing in first person or third. When you're writing in first person, the story is told from the perspective of I. In other words, your character is narrating their own story. This means that their voice should come across not just in dialogue, but also in the narration. As such, the character's voice is the main one rather than the writer's. When you're writing in third person, the story is told from the perspective of he, she, they. In other words, someone who is not your character, i.e. you, the writer, is narrating their story. This means that your character's voice comes across mostly through the dialogue, and there's less of an emphasis on the character's voice in the narration. Now, how do you develop your character's voice and make sure it is consistent and distinct from your own? To achieve this, you have to truly know your character inside and out. It will be easier to do this if they're similar to you in age, gender, nationality, etc., because then you can freely borrow from your own mannerisms and the mannerisms of people around you. If your character is very different from you, though, the challenge becomes a lot greater. You will need to be very, very careful with representation. Let's say your character is much older than you. How can you accurately portray the voice of somebody who's so different? It's really a simple combination of input and output. The input being listening to people who are similar to your character. If, like in our example, they're older than you, then make an effort to observe people who are your character's age. Really pay attention to them, especially to how they speak. Do this a lot. The output, then, is the writing that you do. Practice writing in their voice even before you start drafting the story. Try writing short dialogues and maybe even journal entries in their voice. And the final thing to remember is that you probably won't get their voice perfect in your first draft. And that is okay. So when you come to do your second draft, pay very close attention to the language you use and ask yourself, would my character really talk in this way? It's also very helpful to have somebody else read your work. So if you're handing your work over to somebody else for an edit or feedback, make sure to ask them to pay special attention to your character's voice.